Flow state is overrated. Yes, I said it. Let's talk about it. Today I received an interesting question from a great young man on Instagram asking me, do I think that self-improvement influencers, and I would add productivity influencers and gurus, are overemphasizing the value of the flow state? And I replied straight away, yes, undoubtedly yes. Now, as someone who has been writing and talking about and helping people with the flow state or entering the flow state more frequently for a couple of years at this point, how can I say and why do I say that the value of the flow state is overemphasized? Well, because 99.9% of the conversations around flow state happening online are specifically and only talking about productivity. Flow state, and let me pause here and actually ask you, is this true? Your interactions with the concept and the idea of the flow state online, are they almost always in the context of productivity? Please answer in the comments, is that true or not? I'm going to make the argument that it's almost always the case. When you read or watch, or either read a piece of content or watch a video about the flow state, it is in the context of productivity. And that's why the value of the flow state is overemphasized and oversold, because it's always talking about productivity. So let's create a new, more useful perspective on the flow state. Now, to say in advance, because I've created multiple videos discussing different elements of the flow state and different benefits of the flow state, now this is not going to be a flow state masterclass. This is rather speaking about this particular issue. And that's that Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist, Hungarian-American psychologist, who coined the term and popularized the term flow state, the man who wrote the book Flow, and then later Finding Flow, and then later multiple different variations of the flow book, but the two main ones are Flow and Finding Flow. That man didn't talk about flow as a state that is just or primarily meant to increase your productivity. The whole idea around the flow is to point to the fact, even way back then, before social media, to point to the fact that our attention is our most valuable resource, because it determines the quality of our lives. It determines the quality of the subjective experience of your life, how you are experiencing your life. Therefore, flow, as the also called optimal experience, that's how Csikszentmihalyi also called it, flow as the optimal experience is the experience that is meant to bring you closer to yourself, bring you closer to life, bring you closer to your true self. That's why we also sometimes compare it with, or I'm comparing it with, the peak experience as coined by Abraham Maslow. Because both in flow and in peak experience, you're losing your sense of self, or you are losing self-consciousness. You're not losing consciousness, but self-consciousness, meaning you're not judging yourself as you usually do. And what does all of this mean? Well, you are able to think about yourself outside of the box. You are able to perceive higher possibilities of yourself and your life. But then you are coming out on the other side of the flow experience with a strengthened sense of self. This was an interesting paradox that Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi pointed out in the book Flow. You're losing your sense of self in the flow state, but you're coming out of the flow state with a strengthened sense of self. That's just one of the aspects of it. So why am I saying all of this? How can all of this sound so cool? How can it mean that the flow state is oversold and overhyped? Well, none of this is talked about by all of these influencers and gurus, self-improvement / productivity, when talking about the flow state. So if we keep pumping up flow state as this almost like a nootropic okay, here is how to enter the flow state. Now every morning you are supposed to enter the flow state. Not really. That's what's overhyped. That's what's oversold. It's not how it goes. I can say that the flow state is way more in our control than, for example, peak experience that Abraham Maslow talked about. They're very similar and there is a lot of overlap between them, but they're not exactly the same. Peak experience is greater in intensity and we have way less control over it. Therefore, we cannot reliably produce peak experience. When it comes to the flow state, because we have way greater control of it, we can somewhat reliably create the flow state. However, still setting an expectation for yourself to enter the flow state each morning in your professional career or in a working block when you're working on your side project, to set that expectation to enter the flow state each morning is not the most realistic thing if you are at your early stages of getting familiar with this concept. And even moving forward, even if you've known about the flow state for a while, if we perceive it as the state of getting things done, I think we are reducing it to focus and productivity, which is amazing. It's amazing. I want that state for myself every day, multiple hours per day. But flow state is supposed to be something higher. That's why we talk about that loss of sense of self. That's why we talk about losing sense of time. Not just because time passes faster and you're more productive and you're able to do a lot of working hours without feeling that it's been a long time. It's not about that. Losing sense of time because you're not able to be stressed by the past or worried about the future. Autotelic experience. Have you heard? Okay, again, pause. Did you hear your favorite productivity guru who talks about the flow state? Did you hear him or her? But it's probably him. Did you hear him talk about the flow state being an autotelic experience? What does it mean? It's rewarding in itself. The reward of experience is the experience itself. The thing that you are doing is its own reward. I'm pretty sure they never mention that it's an autotelic experience. Why is it important? Well, it doesn't really go with the concept of productivity, or at least with the grind set productivity, where you're clearly grinding for a goal. Again, respect the grind, love the grind. I try to grind myself. I'm not trying to grind myself. Me, myself, I also try to grind, and I do grind when needed. So none of this is critique of productivity and grinding and pursuing goals. But we have to understand that the flow state and the psychology and philosophy of flow is something that is so far beyond just, okay, here is how to focus better and do it every morning, and this is flow state. So that's why the flow state is overhyped. Now, what is the point of all of this video? For those of you who are still in it, it is that if you want to get all of the benefits of the flow state as an experience that can increase the quality of your life, not just by increasing your productivity, but can increase the quality of your life by improving how you relate to life and how you relate to yourself, and it can improve your understanding of yourself and can help you get a glimpse into what you could become, and can help you get a glimpse or get a clue on what are the activities that you should be spending more time on. If the flow state is all of that, let's not reduce it to just productivity. So that's the point of this video, of me saying that it is oversold and overhyped and overemphasized as it's currently being talked about, because we need to mention all of these things that I now said, And we need to discuss all of those things so that you actually reap all of the benefits from the flow state. So, final verdict: the flow state, in its original conception, as part of a well-developed psychology and philosophy of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, is an immensely important experience and state for your personal growth, for your self-discovery, for increasing the quality of your life regardless of your circumstances, for achieving your goals, but also for making your life more enjoyable with the current setup. So you can see how important it is to learn more about flow and to access it more frequently. As I said, that's what I've been helping people do for years now. On the other side, flow as a tool for productivity is overemphasized and overhyped precisely because it's taking away from focus, no pun intended, on the full nature and full benefits of the flow state. That's it, friends. Thank you for your time. Enter the flow state by realizing and learning about its true nature and all of its elements. I'm here to help you with it through my videos. Also, we'll see some links and resources down below the video. Start entering the flow state, start playing more, because that will be the quickest and easiest access to the flow state. Stay strong, always love life, never feel sorry for yourself. Light that light that fire in your heart. Light that fire in your heart, because it will also contribute to flow, and go beyond. Always go beyond. Thank you.